Hi, and welcome to Studio 411. I'm your host, Larry Dasilva. Well, today we're going to take a trip of sorts, the first of probably many, actually several trips along the way over a 2-week period. We're going to talk to some folks about a new book that's out. It's a new genre of travel, guided independent travel. No, you're not led around by a leash. No, it's all planned out. It's all kind of a new experience that we're going to learn all about today. It's a complete pre-planned trip and a guide to smart travel, so that you don't at the end of your week or 2-week excursion say, geez, I didn't see this, that, or I felt like I was running around, and you feel like you need a vacation to recover from your vacation. The name of the book is Your Great Trip to France, an unforgettable dream vacation for independent travelers. It is published by New Kabaddi Press, and we welcome to the program one of our old friends, Carolee Duckworth, as well as her co-author, Brian Lane. Carolee, who you've seen before on Studio 411, is a passionate traveler and trip designer, and has been to virtually almost all parts of the world, and has made herself in her second career, as she calls it, her switching gears phase, has really entered into a wondrous new phase. Brian Lane began traveling at age 8 and has never stopped, and has experienced independent travel in Europe, Asia, South America, as well as the U.S. So we welcome to Studio 411, Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane. Hey guys, how are you?
Hello, how are you doing, Larry?
Good, good. Carolee is back again from her hub there in the Carolinas. So we thank you both for joining us. And Brian, we hope you didn't break any speed traps on the way to Carolee's studio.
But good to be here.
Very good, very good. Now this is the first in a series of books. How did we come about to decide to start with France?
How did we decide?
Yeah.
Well, we love France, but it was a hard decision because we also love Italy, we love Europe, we love Canada, we love lots of places in the United States. But we just started in on this trip. This is just a marvelous trip, and it's one that I think a lot of people would enjoy taking.
I think part of it had to do with both of our familiarity with having traveled in France in the past, and learning some of the do's and don'ts, things that we went, wow, that was perfect. We want to do that again the next time we travel. And some of the things that we said, you know what, we'll never do that again. And if we had known that beforehand, we wouldn't have done it in the first place. So some of those caveats really kind of motivated this, and we went, geez, other people might want to know about some of these things that we learned along the way. So experience.
Now, you talk about in the early part of the book about envisioning your trip. Now, explain that to me and the audience what that phrase means in the context of this and other books in the series.
Well, the thing about a trip is that so much of the enjoyment is anticipation and looking ahead and getting excited about making that trip, and knowing enough ahead of time about what you're going to be doing to know what to get excited about. I think one of the styles of traveling that we both outgrew very early on was where we just went someplace and tried to figure it out. And we missed a lot once we got there, but we also missed a lot in advance, because when we were looking forward to that trip, about all we knew about it was we're going. And it's much better to have an actual vision of your trip ahead of time and get excited about it, get ready.
There you go. Now, I gather from this book, and I'm sure the others in the series that'll follow, you're not a proponent of the group-guided tours. So if it's, what was that famous movie? If it's Tuesday, it must be Belgian.
Yeah, I know, right.
And to your point, Larry, that's exactly what I experienced at a pretty early age. My brother and I were fortunate enough to get to travel with our grandparents several times to Europe. And in one particular trip, it was a cathedral and castle tour I remember that my takeaway when I got home, when my parents asked me, "What did you like about this trip? What do you remember?" All I could say was that the restrooms were on the right and the gift shops were on the left, and it just wasn't, it just didn't hit home. So we certainly didn't end up interacting with the people that we had come to see. We had created this micro clique of our tour group. And you can go on a trip and never interact with the people whose country you've come to visit. And we thought, well, what a travesty. Some of the best interactions and connections that you make happen when you're actually talking to the people that that live there.
Exactly. I always ended up on the group trips, and we've taken quite a few group trips too before we settled in on our favorite style of travel ever. But I always seem to end up in total rebellion. Just one little story was in Finland. There was this beautiful rock church. It's carved out of pink granite, and you go down in a cup in the earth with a total glass dome over you, and it's the most incredible place to sit down and listen. In this case, to a trumpet player. And the sound was just all over that place. The acoustics were incredible. And I sat down and started to enjoy it. And the bus was ready to leave. And so they came to find me and said, "You've got to get on the bus." And I said, "But I don't want to get on the bus. You go on, I'll stay here." And of course, they weren't allowed to let me do that. So actually, Brian and I went back. This was in Helsinki. We had to go back the next year to Helsinki, so that the first thing we did was go to that church to a concert and actually sit there through the whole concert the way I wanted to do in the first place.
There you go. And a similar story, I'm hoping that Carolee remembers this from the book. There's a story about a trip that you took where, again, the bus was on a schedule, and I want to say it was called the Spring Tulips of Holland.
Oh yes.
And you recall there you were defiant even in that one as well.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's like, let me off the bus. They were pointing. That's where the tulip market is. As we went, and then the bus just started up. It was like, "Oh, aren't we going to go see the tulips?" "Oh no, we don't have time for that. But that's where they were."
There you go. So now the book then, with the kind of structure that it is, again, it's a structure, again, obviously, as we were talking off air before, it's a loose structure in the sense that these are recommendations, encouragements, but again, like you said, if someone is strong-willed such as yourself or is having a good time in a certain activity, again, that you can, break from what is recommended you do, because again, it could be raining on a certain day, it could be excessively hot, so a person or people might have difficulties, either physical or otherwise, where they can't do something, so then they're going to make some modifications, or at least we hope they do, so that they can enjoy a pleasurable trip. But again, in your case, obviously, if they follow this, they should get a pretty well-rounded experience, as opposed to step on it. Let's get to the next stop.
It is, and that's exactly right, Larry. And we actually very much encourage people to adapt the trip to their own liking. We happen to love music, so we go a little heavy on that. We love art. But we also love outdoor cafes, and I'm a real sucker for those outdoor markets. I love just wandering around and looking at all the different things for sale, and even the fruits and the flowers and whatever. But we really want people to make the trip their own. And we think that having this structure to begin with, this framework, so to speak, makes it possible to be much more flexible, because you've already got your plan. So if you don't want to do this today, but you'd rather do this today, just swap those 2 days and you're good to go.
Exactly.
Or take this afternoon and go do it tomorrow morning and take the whole afternoon off. And just hang out in a park.
So yeah, the idea of having an itinerary and the day pages gives them the structure, and then takes care of all the logistics, which frankly is the most difficult part. So if you're trying to do this on your own and you're going from place to place, if you don't have the logistics, the train schedules, where to connect, how to get a taxi from here to here, the timing of how these things are going to work, you're not even going to be able to successfully move from one city to another. Once you're in those cities, take the day pages, take the itinerary, and adjust it, make it your own.
And that's and I'm thinking that's with one or two people, either a solo trip or a couple. Imagine now if it's 5 or 6 children, or even a group of relatives trying to do this. It becomes astronomical, because you're trying to get everybody on the same page, for lack of a better word. And then you're like, okay, we're already 2 hours behind. The sun is setting, and they're missing out on the whole day.
Well, and just as an example, and we call these day pages. When we're talking about day pages, it's a set of pages for each day. And so you staple together the day pages for that day, and those pages go with you, so that you have everything you'll need with you.
Right.
Your day pack. But I took a trip, actually arranged a trip for my Lake Norman book club to Italy, to Florence, as a matter of fact, and then some of the surrounding towns. But those day pages became critical, because people were, I wanted this, I wanted that, I want to go off here, but we could always find each other again, because we knew that at 12, they could look at the day page and say, oh, I know where Carolee's going to be. She's going to be.
And even with 2 couples, 3 couples, whatever, not even, family members from 8 to 80, everyone is not going to want to do the same thing. Sure, if you're on a bus tour, you really don't have a choice. It's the old thing, well, we're going to go to this museum, that museum, this, and next thing is 6 museums, and I'm already tired of seeing museums. An old movie I saw, can we go to the beach? Well, no, that's not in our schedule, so that's some of what you run into. But, I just think that with this setup, it provides that guidance, yet you still feel independent, yet it's well planned, because, as you said, you've got all that information, and you're providing it for each of the trips in this book, and I'm assuming subsequent books that will come along. You're not just giving them random numbers, you're giving them actual train numbers, taxi phone numbers, which is amazing, considering, obviously it's, a foreign land, but you guys have got it all right here. It's amazing.
So the other side of that, Larry, is there were several experiences that we had where our plans fell through, and it was because of poor planning, frankly. And so we've gone a little bit heavy on the planning side, because there's an opportunity cost to not getting to do what you plan to do when you're in a foreign country. Just take the total trip cost divided by the number of days, and think about how much that day cost. And so if you go 2 hours out of your way to do something and it doesn't get to happen, well, how much time have you wasted, and what did that cost you in terms of money and in terms of the experience? Right. So that was another motivating factor, to be a little bit more organized, have a little bit more structure to start with, but then be flexible from there.
Your great trip to France, Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane, co-authors, joining us for the hour here on Studio 411. I'll start this particular first in a series of travel books covers the Loire Chateau. Am I saying that correct? All right.
Correct.
5 years of French didn't go to waste, obviously. My French teacher would be so proud. By the way, she was a native. She was actually, to digress a moment, she was actually lived during the occupation during World War II.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so that's a story unto itself. But anyway, Loire Chateau, Mont Saint-Michel, Normandy, and of course the City of Light, Paris. Your great trip to France, igniting your passion for travel. New Kabaddi Press, and also for more information, the website yourgreattrip.com. All right. Real quick, on one of the pages, you had an encounter, or I should say maybe your husband, Barry, had an encounter with a Frenchman. And I know my executive producer, who also reviewed the book and has spent time in France, was very impressed. A very unique Frenchman, the note to me, was they've obviously mellowed considerably over the years. Would you agree with that assessment, Carolee? I assume you had been to France years before, no?
Yes, I have been to France many times, and I think they have mellowed some. But also, I think early on, and I don't know, of course, everybody has different experiences, but I think earlier I was approaching the French incorrectly, and with a very American set of expectations. And before, I guess, my second or third trip to France, I read a book called Culture Shock France. And I learned about how things worked there, and then how they were perceiving me behaving as I was behaving. And I could see that I was coming across in a not very, I thought I was being friendly, but I was coming across in kind of an aggressive, pushy way. And so I learned to meet people the French way. And there are differences. There are very distinct differences. And with that, with those changes came a very different set of responses to me. And so that's become part of the fun for me, is trying to it more presentable in the French culture.
There you go.
So some of the niceties in terms of just having an interaction with French people, it's part of their culture. So being a little bit sensitive to that, understanding that saying bonjour, ça va, comment ça va, how are you doing? Just some of those niceties, and starting in the French language is extremely important to them. There is an animosity between people from the UK and France. So when you start speaking English, that's a little bit left over from there, regardless of whether we're Australian, Canadian, from the United States. It's actually because it's a leftover animosity between the UK and France. So in any event, just trying to understand just a few words that you could say back and forth. That's something that we included in the book. Just simple phrases. Don't learn the entire language, but just start out with a few basic phrases. These pleasantries, I guess, as you call them, will get the conversation started. And we've been surprised. Every single trip I've taken, whenever I've begun in French, I might switch to English because I can't, I speak like a 4-year-old to them. but at least I've started that path. Every single encounter I've ever had has been positive. So to hear people have these sort of negative experiences in the past, I think it's mostly because they just start speaking in English, and French people do not like that.
No, they don't. They don't like that. And the French do love 4-year-olds. That's part of it, is that when you start in French, you are vulnerable, and you're sort of taking the lead in being making mistakes. And so then, even though they have acted like they don't speak English, they will start trying to speak some English because they think they sound terrible in English. They sound actually better than I sound in French, but if I'm making mistakes, then they can make mistakes, and then they start to try to connect. They work just as hard. In fact, they'll start trying to supply the ends of the sentences. You'll start in and you'll be fumbling around, and they'll be, like as if you were 4 years old, trying to help you to say what you're trying to say. And so that
I always thought as a kid growing up, I thought, if I ever get to France, because I knew, what some of their likes and dislikes were, or I thought I did, I would say when I started taking French in junior high and high school, and I thought, I got the perfect remedy. I'll just go, je suis Jerry Lewis, and I'll be in, because because they have some strange fascination with the comedian and actor Jerry Lewis. I figured, or if I said that I knew him, I'd be like golden. I'd be probably chauffeured all over the place. But I don't know. I haven't been there, so I haven't tried that yet. You
There
know,
you go.
I
I
just
think
have
you
to
would be a smash hit. I think it would. I think it would go over swimmingly.
yeah, just Nutty Professor. You know, just like let's say lady a lot, and that'll be a clincher right there. Anyway, the one of the themes that I took from the book, again, the travel style, again, arrive, orient yourself, again, through the pre-planning process, yet be there, and key with any trip, I don't think just overseas, make yourself at home. Because if you're not kind of relaxing while you're on vacation, well, then you've got a problem, because that's why you're there, is to relax.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, and it's fun. You can, even in Paris, which is a large city and very challenging, but it's all broken into neighborhoods, so you can carve out your little neighborhood. We have people staying on the left bank, close to Notre Dame, very, very walkable area. And the first thing we want you to do, and the first thing we do, is walk out our door and go to the left and go to the right and go around the block a few times and find our own spots. So when we get lost, we'll meet here at this cafe. Oh, look, let's go get some wine. Let's go pick up some cheese. Here's our ATM machine if we run out of money, so that we start to have the feel of being, of being there. And then once you have your own little neighborhood, then you can start branching out from there, and it all starts to make sense. You don't feel lost and alone. You feel like, I'm here, and I'm part of it.
The other thing, Larry, is that one of the things that we learned early on is that on a group tour, you're going to hit a place, you're going to jump back on the bus, pack up your suitcase, and head on your way. And so we said, you know what, forevermore, you need to get there, arrive, and be there for a number of days so that you can relax. You can take the time to look around and become part of a neighborhood. And that is where, your vacation really, really begins. The hectic kind of pace of jumping on and off the bus and having this checklist of monument, picture, monument, is it just didn't work. And we felt like there were several places that we wanted to go and spend time that wasn't part of the plan. So we just had to jump back on the bus and move on. So
your great trip to France, Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane, talking about the first in a series of travel books to ignite the passion for travel. And I had something I was going to say, and I forgot what it was now. No, I know. You ever see those old photos of, like, life in Paris, even before and then after, even the war years, whatever. And again, there's such a simplicity about it, such a nicety about it. And now we have, ATMs, and which you mentioned earlier, cell phones and everything else. I'm thinking, what did people? It must have been much simpler. I mean, okay, meet me here at the cafe. You find a central spot. It's like when you go to a mall. Meet me by this number or in front of this store, and it's so fine. Everybody makes everything so difficult now. Oh, we've got to try to, cram this and that, and then, okay, well, where is everybody? Oh, I have no cell service. Well, again, they don't prepare. Forget the cell phone. Just meet me in front of this building. I mean, I don't know. Modes of travel, not very much rental car in terms. That's something you guys really kind of frown. So it's a bus or even a water bus, correct? What's the pronunciation for that?
Bateau-bus.
Bateau-bus, yeah, and rail service, which I don't know that you would recommend that per se here in the U.S., but in Europe, from what I understand, their rail service is second to none.
And we did it. We've done it both ways, but it was absolutely exhausting for both of us. Brian and I just traveled, just the two of us, around France for 3 weeks, and then in the next year another 3 weeks by car. And we had a lot of fun, but we were focused every minute we were in that car. And this was pre-GPS, so it was even more so than it would be now. But, I would literally have 2 maps in my lap so I could see the whole of France, a map of all of France, and then of the region. because none of the signs are not the same as they are in the United States. Obviously, they're in French for starters, but second of all, they give direction. You are told what direction you're going, not where you're going to. Okay. So if I wanted to go to Mooresville, which is a town down the street down from us here, I might go in the direction of Charlotte for a while, and then in the direction of Miami, and then in the direction of of Winston-Salem, and then in the direction. So you're doing a connect the dot to get to where you're going, and you always have to know what is beyond where. It's very complicated anyway, trust me. So anyway, now we just go by train, which is perfectly lovely. We don't have to worry about parking the car, and the trains are immaculate. They're a lot of fun. We relax on the train. We arrive. All the trains, of course, arrive in the center of the town. The train station is very conveniently located, and so then we're good to go. And once we get to the town, we use the transportation that's available in that town, the best transportation available.
You know, the other thing, Larry, that we learned is that driving on the auto routes, the tolls just to be on the auto route are very, very high. Right. Not only that, but gas is extremely high.
Oh my gosh.
And parking is incredibly difficult. You know, the roads are smaller, towns are smaller, parking lots are smaller, and so when you start adding up all the costs there, and back to the opportunity cost that I talked about before, just imagine us, and this has happened several times. They're called ronds-points, which is what we call a roundabout. They're everywhere. Or imagine us going around in circles 2, 3, 4, 5 times, just trying to figure out what we're doing, and missing out on the activity yet again because we're having trouble just getting there on our own. So all those things, you know, the additional money just for having the car, driving the car, and the difficulty parking, and then the opportunity cost of us missing out on, you know, several hours and several days on what we had planned to do, led us to say, you know what, trains are the better way to go. You can lay back, you can read, you can watch you could watch the towns go by and watch the view, and you can relax and take a nap and be refreshed by the time you get to the town that you're going to, so you're ready to hit the ground running.
There you go. I was going to say, I figured of the 4 destinations in this first in the series, that Paris would be, from a car standpoint, would be hellacious to try to get around. For the reasons you stated, maybe not so much with the other ones, but as you said, they're still, you know, extracting the little, you know, euros of flesh as you go along. You'll be, like I said, parking, et cetera, et cetera. So enough said on that. That's an excellent point. Some quick points here. Long lines for the Eiffel Tower. I'm jumping to Paris because we were just talking about it. The Eiffel Tower, among other of the major monuments in Paris, or is a lot of that can be circumvented by getting passes in advance?
Well, yeah, we've got all kinds of information about that in the book because, again, there are things that you want to know before you go that you will find out for yourself the hard way if you don't know them in advance. Most of the lines you get to skip by having the Paris pass, for example. Mm-hmm. And yet in order to get the pass and validate the pass, you have to wait in one line at the first place. So even that choice of which place am I going to go to first to validate the pass, so that from then on I don't have to wait in the line once the pass is validated. So a lot of these things, logistics-wise, we've got completely simplified. And then with the Eiffel Tower, of course, we've got people making reservations, so they actually have an assigned time and are not waiting in the line to get an assigned time. They've got an assigned time, and right. Or even better, reservations in the restaurant, because then you get to just walk right in and not only enjoy the Eiffel Tower, but enjoy eating from the second level. in the Eiffel Tower, which is quite an experience.
So imagine this, for people who travel to, Disneyland and done that sort of thing, it's the Fast Pass. You need the Fast Pass. So that's what it does. You want to go to the Louvre, you go to the Orsay Museum. Well, you could sit there and wait for 30 minutes to an hour in line, or have the Fast Pass. You just skip the line and you're already inside.
Yeah, just walk right in.
That's great. So yeah, all that over a course of 10 to 14 days, whatever the length of your trip, is certainly going to, add up. Probably, I feel like you had an extra day's vacation, at least in terms of accomplishments. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane joining us for the hour on Studio 411. The book, Your Great Trip to France, Unforgettable Dream Vacation for Independent Travelers, published by New Kabaddi Press. For more information, yourgreattrip.com. Oh my goodness, let's see. We talked about connecting with the locals. Carolee, tell me real quick, there was a story, I call it the red coat story. Tell me about that encounter you had, schmoozing with the fashionistas.
That was a good example too of how to approach the French, because they can seem like they're not friendly, because if they're not your friend, they're not going to just smile at you and say hello like we do generally in the States. However, they will come up with any excuse to become your friend, and then once you're friends, they'll talk with you. They're perfectly comfortable with you. Well, this was a good example, because I was in a department store and I was trying on two coats. It was the same style. One was gray and one was red. And I noticed a woman who was just kind of watching me try on these coats. And so I asked her in French, le gris ou le rouge? Should I take the gray one or the red one? Well, now we were friends, because she had her opinion. Le rouge, certainement. So I took the red coat and I bought the red coat. And days later, we were at that point in Avignon, in Provence. But days later, we were in a restaurant, very fancy restaurant, everybody all dressed up for Christmas Eve, and we were waiting to go out. It was raining outside. We were waiting for our ride to come, and we were standing there, and all of a sudden, this woman cries out, leaps up from the table, and says, La femme avec le manteau rouge, the woman with the red coat, and comes running across the restaurant, throws her arms around me, and gives me a big hug.
Oh, so the same woman.
It was the woman in in the shop.
I was just wondering if she was wearing the gray coat, because that might have been a ploy to get her, like, let's get this Americanista here, let's get her to buy the red coat, because I want the gray coat, but okay. Okay.
But
shame on me for cynicalness. There we go.
She had helped pick my coat, so now we were friends. So you see how this works a little bit, that there has to be a reason for a relationship, and we had one.
There you go.
Anyway.
We'll go to Brian on this one. Quick answers. 3 must-sees on the trip. Now, this encompasses Loire, Chateau, Mont Saint-Michel, Normandy, or Paris. 3 must-sees on this vacation that most people would recognize. 3 must-see. If you had just 3 to pick from, yeah.
Okay, you're really putting me on the spot. Well, it's a little bit difficult because we love art. So the Louvre is really it's hard to miss something like that. Honestly, I think a lot of people will be less familiar with, but Mont Saint-Michel, even though they might not know it as an iconic figure, is remarkable as a priest. It's just an ancient abbey. It's breathtaking, and the story and the history behind it is really something else. The museum in Cannes, the north of that.
Oh yeah.
For historical reasons, just to learn a little bit more about World War I and World War II, which of course, France had a central role, and of course, there was a lot of history there. The Cannes, is it called the Cannes History Museum? Or
it's it's the whole period of being occupied and actually leading into you go down a spiral. as Europe was spiraling down, as Hitler was gaining control, and you actually feel yourself entering that whole time. And they've done everything they can to create the experience for you so that you can imagine yourself there.
And that's a very good point, because if you go to a museum in the United States, everything is very literal and fact-based. In France, it was about the feeling. It's about the emotions of the people. So the way that you interact with the material and how you access it, even though it's the same information, is completely different. But it's a bit more personal. So definitely a must-see.
Yeah, Memorial has a memorial museum. But then I was going to add Chenonceau, just one.
Okay,
one
I was going to say only three.
Only three.
All right, now we'll turn it to Carolee. 3 must-sees on the trip that most people would not recognize immediately.
Oh, this is for me?
Yes. So obviously, no Eiffel Tower, no Champs-Élysées, whatever. 3 must-sees on this trip. This book right here, as Ed McMahon used to say, that are absolutely must-sees that would not be recognizable to most folks who were going on their first trip to France.
First of all, I would pick Clos Lucé, which is in the same town as Amboise Chateau, big castle, but it's the final home of Leonardo da Vinci, who was buddies with the king. The king loved him so much and found him so fascinating that he moved him across the street from him, so to speak, brought him from Italy, and actually Leonardo brought the Mona Lisa on a donkey over the Alps and gave it as a gift. And they had a tunnel connecting them. The king would come down through the tunnel into Clos Lucé, where Leonardo lived, and visit. They would visit back and forth. But that place is fascinating because they've gone from Leonardo's drawings and created the actual models of his inventions. And it is just a fascinating place that many people, I don't think, have heard of.
And that's one. No.
That's one, but I don't know that we have time for 3.
Well, I'll give you a second one if you can throw it back in my court, Larry. Bayeux. The Bayeux tapestry is from the period of William the Conqueror, and that's 1066 we're talking about. And the Bayeux tapestry, again, if you dig history, and if you want to dig into a little bit of the history, you can learn a tremendous amount about it. And this is a tapestry that runs, I don't know the total length of it, but it goes on and on and on and on. And the neat thing about it is it relates all the story of how William the Conqueror became William the Conqueror, and all the things that happened to him, including his troops as he was actually a foot soldier before he became into power, is walking across near Mont Saint-Michel. Now we go back to Mont Saint-Michel, and apparently there is a lot of quicksand in that area, and of course they're wearing their heavy their heavy metal armor, and several fell into the quicksand, and he ended up saving them. But in any event, so really fascinating stories with the Bayeux tapestry, but that's something that most people probably wouldn't know about.
And I'll give you 3, and I'll make it quick. I don't know that people know about the Bateaux. When you're in Paris, you can go on the metro, of course, and go underground and see nothing.
Right.
You are in a tunnel. Or you can get on a boat bus that goes up and down the river, and you're floating by the Louvre, the Orsay, the Eiffel Tower. You're going by Notre Dame, and you can get pretty close to where you want to go by just using that mode of transportation. You get a 2-day pass. You can hop on anytime you want, hop off anytime you want.
Okay.
It's a great place to go when your feet start to hurt. Just even if you don't need to go anywhere, just get on it and sit down for a while.
Or when it's raining.
Yes. There we go. To tie in with what Brian was saying, again, one of the things I enjoyed with the book was that the reader / traveler is educated on the historical side of where they're going, as well as how to get there and how to enjoy all the amenities. So that's, again, it really is like we were saying off air. It's like an immersion course in what you need to know, what you need to do, but it's just not, do this, do this, do this. It's you're educating and you're enlightening people as they read the book and kind of start to envision what their trip, could possibly be like.
And as my mother mentioned earlier, you're sitting at breakfast and you're reading about what you're about to experience. And when you get there, you know what to look for, and you know what questions to ask your tour guides, and you know where to look because you've already gotten a little bit of a taste of where you're going. There were several times on group tours where I'd end up somewhere, have no context, no idea where I was, and then later, after I got home, when I brushed up on it, I went, oh, I should have gone downstairs. There was a basement level that I completely missed out on. If I had known, had a little bit of context, I might have been able to experience the thing that I was most interested in seeing. So it helps.
One thing, too, I wanted to mention, you talk about mailing small treasures, souvenirs, etc., because obviously once you go on any trip, you're going to start paying, talk about additional fees when it comes time to go home. So one of the things you recommend is to, go to their local postal facility and then mail small packages during that 10 to 2 week period, so that you kind of lighten the load a little bit, so you're not, bringing, or God forbid things break in the suitcase. You're kind of, mailing them home and they're on their way, so that when you get back, oh, here they are. They've already arrived, perhaps.
But actually, Larry, just to be true confession, I don't mail home any little packages. I get the biggest box they've got, and you can fill it to the max. And I start mailing home. I don't let my suitcase limit me. So, sometimes I mail home a couple pairs of shoes that I'm not using, or an extra. Maybe I took warm clothes and it turns out to be, I don't need them, and I'll roll those up. But I'll start sending home call it mailing home to bricks. Because whenever you carry one of these boxes, my husband carries them down to the post office. He has to lift them up, and
wow.
That would have all been in our suitcases. All that weight would have been in our suitcases.
She's not mailing home any of those tapestries that were on the wall, I hope.
Well, we get. Yeah.
She has one.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
See,
we'll have to edit that out of the program, because otherwise the authorities will be on to you. Okay. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Again. So I'm immersed in the book. Learn and know your bridges. That was another thing. Not just from a location standpoint, but also so that you educate yourself, and perhaps if you have to ask a native there, you have some semblance of knowing where you are or what you're looking for. Know your bridges, and kind of each day expound, as well as phrasing too. Learn, you give a thing with basics, and then each day kind of maybe pick up a little bit more of the culture and the lingo as you go along.
Right, and you can learn to, when you're using that autobus, you can stop. Of course, you're going under all of these bridges, so you're getting to see them up very, very close up, and you can start to really get a sense of where am I? Oh, I know what the next bridge is going to be, the one with the little heads, the little sculptures of heads, and we're coming closer to the one with the great big gold decorations. So it makes it more fun. It makes you feel more like you know where you are.
There you go. In the remaining moments we have here with our friends Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane, the book, Your Great Trip to France, the website for more information, yourgreattrip.com. My executive producer, NL Bemis, NL stands for No Larry, just so you know that. That's what she usually tells me. It doesn't say much, just No Larry, and then I just move on to something else. But anyway, that didn't get a laugh, but we'll go on to something else. She doesn't laugh either, so that makes 3 of you. But anyway, she spent a year in France, and she lived in Rouen.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Again, looking in the book, and I'm trying to find, let's see, where the comment was, well, felt that Rouen got short shrift because it was...
Well, Rouen is in a different book.
Oh, it is in a different book.
There are 4 books,
Okay,
friends.
okay. So you've saved the day. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes. But well, look at all that's left out. We don't have any of Provence. We don't have any of the Côte d'Azur. We don't have the Alps, the French Alps. So there's actually four books planned, and one of the books she will love, and it is Paris and Surrounds, where you go out and spend time in each spoke of the wheel going out from Paris. So you actually go and stay in Versailles for a while, you go stay in Fontainebleau for a while, you come down to Angers, and which is again a short trip from Paris, but you again stay there for a while, and you go and stay in Rouen.
Excellent answer. I see her booking your next appearance as we speak. So you've saved the day. Otherwise, I could see a lot of check marks next to your name.
And from Rouen, you also go visit Giverny, which is very
absolutely,
beautiful.
yeah. That's where someday I hope to go visit. Is where we have a standing invitation. So believe me, I will certainly consult you on that when I take that trip. In the remaining moments we have here on Studio 411, your great trip to France. Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane, the co-authors. Short answer at this point, if we can. Nightlife in Paris, couple of recommendations. Obviously Moulin Rouge, I would think, nightlife. What about some other points of interest that you feel would be a good evening in Paris?
We love the boat bars floating out on the Seine. You just get on, it's an actual boat, and then on the deck you have tables. They're very nice. On the left bank, in the Latin Quarter, there's just a warren of streets with all kinds of piano bars. So we enjoy that. And one of my favorites was a night concert in Sainte-Chapelle, which is a beautiful, beautiful small chapel. And as the night falls, the light coming in through those stained glass windows is stunning, and you listen to a wind quintet or a string quartet, and it's like the perfect combination of pleasures.
Yeah, it's a good way to end your day.
There you go. Another note I have here, they would definitely take the, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, the funiculaire, is that correct?
Funicular?
Funicular. Is that where a lot of artists and artisans obviously sell their wares there? And I'm told have a portrait or a silhouette done, but as you say also in the book, that you were right on point with that, set the price as you recommended strongly in the book, so that this way they don't say, well, give me X amount of million euros for your little painting there.
Well, everybody has probably seen the picture of the basilica and up those many, many, many stairs. So your other option, if you don't want to take the funicular, is to walk up all those stairs. I would take the funicular.
There you go.
From there, you turn around and beautiful.
You have to look back.
Paris.
Look back.
Look
back down.
One thing I made a note, because I know this is something I always try to bring with me, and it's really old school, but again, is a throwaway camera or two, because sometimes your cell phone or maybe if you have more sophisticated camera equipment, doesn't work or something happens to it, batteries, whatever, fail. At least you have, a throwaway camera. I know they're not as popular, obviously, with all the modern day technology, but there's been times where you've been in a place and for whatever reason someone, we left it back at the hotel. Well, here, you've got this in your pocket or in your little handbag or whatever, and then at least you can capture some moments or capture a photo or two of yourselves with something like that. I know someone to go around without their iPhone or their cell phone, that's almost like committing a crime, but it does happen. So just
that's a terrific idea, Larry. Yeah, you don't want to miss out. You're only there once when you're on vacation. So there is one thing I should say that thing that people experience pretty often with their phones when they're traveling, since they use those for taking pictures all the time, is they run out of battery power before they run out of pictures to take. So we've also included a note to take little small battery charges that you just carry in your backpack or your purse with you during the day, and then as you're venturing around, you're recharging your battery so you can.
So are those like portable ones? In other words, you don't need a direct current.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Portable battery recharges, so that you can recharge your battery, so that you can continue to use your cell phone to use the GPS to know where you're going, how you're, and to be able to take pictures.
That's right, because since you're not renting a car most of the times, as you both recommend, a GPS would have to be contained within a phone or whatever. So yeah, you're going to drain a lot of power if you don't come prepared, for what you need. Exactly.
And that's another good point, Larry, is communication. That's in the back of the book, one of the last chapters, talking about how specifically to set your phone up with a French SIM card, and how to do it in a way that, let's just say that the last trip we took probably cost between the two of us 140 euros, plus we had very limited data, so they wanted us to upgrade, of course, versus 30 euros with 2 gig of data. So there's some little bits of research that we've done to help people save money, and that's one of them.
Sure. One point too that I know was mentioned to me, and I said, yeah, I had heard this. The trains in France leave right on time. It's not like Metro North or other parts of the country where there's like always delays. The trains, they may be a minute or two late, but when they get there, they do their thing and they are gone. So you have to be on point to make sure that you are where you need to be. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting a little bit for the next train, especially when you're reliant on that to get around.
Which is true getting on the train, but it's also true getting off the train, because they only pause briefly at each station. So you have to have yourself completely collected at the door, standing there ready to hop off before the train, or the train will start up with you in it, and you won't be able to get off.
There you go. And say, I can see it now. Brian, bye. Meet me at the next stop.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, okay, taxi. There we go. Anyway, we could go on. Again, there's so much material on here. I interview folks sometimes where they've had a long career, a long life, their story, over 50 years, 20 years, whatever the case. A trip like this, believe me, a 2-week trip, and there will be even some versions coming out for shorter excursions, which we'll have to touch on next time. But again, it is amazing, what is contained in this book, and I'm sure the series to come. Your great trip to France, Carolee Duckworth and Brian Lane, certainly igniting all our passions for travel. We look forward to having you back on. I know you will, because you gave the right answer before. So we thank you for coming by, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we thank all of you for joining us on this episode of Studio 411, and we look forward to seeing you again down the road as well. Have a great day.